I think the potential for art to heal and to help people grow and
Exactly.
it's just huge. And whether it's young people or older people, I think sort of helping people at the end, towards the end stages of life, dealing with difficult things or illness or dementia, and whether it's art in terms of like painting or drawing or music or dance or those things, I think
Exactly.
connects to people in such a deep way.
So great to meet you on Zoom, Natasha.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much for getting in touch, and the invitation to be part of this. It's really wonderful to find out about the artist's voice. Yeah, it's really great.
It's I'm very interested in what you're doing. Tell me more about matter, space, and soul.
So that's the name of my practice, which covers, it's quite broad in that it covers both art and architecture. So I've sort of combined a variety of things into almost like I call it a design lab, but it's bringing together things, because I suppose originally I've always been an artist first before I studied architecture. And I practice both as a way to almost inform one another. And my work is a lot to do about how people are affected by places or their environments or nature. And so I explore that both in art, but then that helps to create perhaps a more humane version of architecture. That's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because I saw some of your work. I also watched that video where you talk about loneliness and that you talk about space and how that affects also people. And yeah, this is something that when I watched that video, I thought about it a lot and thought, but yeah, it's true. You know, you are drawn to a specific space for a specific reason, you know, for how you are feeling and what you get in that space.
Absolutely. I think people are starting to become more aware, especially since COVID, of how your environment affects you and can affect, say, your mental health, or just whether you have the opportunity to connect with other people and meet people and how you feel. And that's something I've always been really interested in. I suppose I think of myself as there's a category called highly sensitive person or like an empath.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've always felt it, you know, when I'm somewhere, I can feel whether it's calm or whether it's a kind of stressful place or whether it feels welcoming. And to me, that seems really, really obvious. But I appreciate that not everyone sees the world in that way. So I'm trying to, I suppose, through art or through media like film, try and communicate some of those things that the places around us do affect our lives, and you know, the day to day, but also over the longer term as well, how people live. So it's a kind of blend together art practice with actually how we could design places differently as well.
I'm also like that. A space for me, you know, has to have, I have to feel it, you know, and I remember my daughter used to live in a flat, and I always wanted to see her, but the flat, there was something in this flat that I never thought myself that I could live there. And actually in lockdown, when she was there every day, she actually also felt it, you know, and because usually it was just in the evenings that she was there and, you know, during the day she worked. So, but the moment she was there all day, it started, you know, she started feeling it as well. So I thought, yeah, it's true, you know, and even in the workplace, I think it's so important because we spend so much time there that space should really be something, and not just it's an office with a lot of chairs and tables.
There's so much that can be done to think about actually supporting people to feel uplifted when they go to work, or feel a sense of purpose, or like creativity, all these sorts of things. And it's not, I think the times of having just people go to work to sit at a desk are perhaps moving behind, and actually there needs to be a reason to go to the office now, because people can work from home. So actually these spaces need to bring something that actually helps the people that are going to be there and supports their mental well-being, and helps them, focus if they need to focus, but also be more creative. Or and yeah, there's a lot that can be done. I look towards something called environmental psychology a lot, which is an actual science that's looking at how spaces affect us mentally and emotionally. So there's a lot of things that show, actually there's research on it. So I try and bring that in through design, but also things like having artworks in the spaces is also really good. Things like that.
Actually, just last week spoke to a neuroscientist, Hugo Spears, from London, and he was talking about the research that they're doing to see how the environment, would influence productivity, and why certain people are sort of inspired in certain environments to create or to excel. So yeah, the science is there, so people, it's true that this is so important to think about.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention Hugo Spears' work, actually, because I know him and cross over on the neuroscience side as well.
Really?
With some of his researchers and team. I work with one of the researchers at UCL very closely. So yeah, there's a new field. I mean, he probably talked about this, but there's a new field called neuroarchitecture, which is sort of bringing together the neuroscience and the architecture, and that's something that's, I think, it's just going to keep growing. And in a similar way, there's sort of neuro arts as a field. I don't know if you've come across that, but thinking about how more specifically art and creative practices affect people's brains and minds and support people in that way. So it's like a really interesting kind of gathering of different disciplines happening.
And I just think it's so needed, because art plays such an important role in our lives and in our society. And this is really why I'm doing this, is to show the value of art and to, make people aware of that art. It's not a part-time thing, or it's not something, that we think of as entertainment, but that it's really influencing our thinking and our well-being, and also our productivity.
Absolutely. And it's something that I think, does get sort of put into a category of, arts is a sort of nice to have somehow. But actually, either doing the creative process or being part of groups doing that, also can support things like social connection, or tackle loneliness, or tackle these bigger societal issues. So there's like a whole range of things that it can really help with. But I think for some reason, art just gets put into a different box from sort of, say, health or society.
And I've been speaking lately to a lot of young artists in Africa. And these are young people, and they've started drawing and painting and really, in spite of their circumstances, and not having always the means to buy these paints and things, but they they see it as something uplifting in the environment, and in their community. And it gives young people also a focus, and like you say, bringing people together and inspired by each other in that community where there is a lot of poverty or a lot of crime or a lot of other negative things that children get to do with or get in contact with. So for me, it's just so important that we raise this awareness and that we talk about this, because this is for our children, for them to understand the value of art.
Yeah. Sort of, well, art being really healing potentially is something where it's like, it's sort of, what I sort of understood from what you're saying with these communities is that it's providing opportunity, but maybe it helps, in a way it's dealing with some of these really difficult things that are going on. And I think the potential for art to heal and to help people grow and
Exactly.
It's just huge. And whether it's young people or older people, I think sort of helping people towards the end stages of life, dealing with difficult things or illness or dementia, and whether it's art in terms of like painting or drawing or music or dance or those things, I think connects to people in such a deep way. And I've found it always to be an amazing kind of source of healing and something to take me through difficult times. So I think if people have access to that, maybe not everyone has the ability to access it or the confidence to just do it. So it'd be great to have it, more accessible to people in general.
And I also think to express yourself, because some people express themselves better through art or music or, songwriting. If you just think of songwriters, then sometimes you listen to a song and think, yes, that's exactly how I feel, but I just couldn't say it in the same way in words, and how wonderful that art is able to do that.
Yeah, I always feel like there's things that I can't literally put into words, and that's the paintings and the things are there to help sort of see what that is, or just let things come out and emerge. And I think there's so many things that art can do, and I suppose it works with a different part of yourself, like perhaps the slightly more subconscious self in a way. And I feel like it would be great if it could be part of more people's lives. And and in fact I'm trying to make it a bigger part of my practice at the moment, where there's been a balance, sort of more architecture and design work and then art practice somewhat separate. And now I'm trying to blend the two a little bit more.
But that's amazing. But you studied architecture, and what in that process made you want to combine the two, or make it more sort of a one design idea?
Once I finished studying, I was working for a little while, and whilst I've been studying, I'd focused quite a lot on how places impact people as individuals or as societies. And then when I came to sort of professional work, there was a limit to how much you could actually do that in reality. And so I turned towards art in a way to start exploring the more intangible sides of places, or how places affect people, the meaning of places, that, the meaning of home, or I don't know, the idea of sanctuary, things like that. And so within art, I could do that quite freely and explore these different themes, which I couldn't do professionally in architecture. And so,
but why was that?
I suppose this is going back maybe 12 years or so was when I left more traditional architecture. And I suppose generally, perhaps in the industry, there's a lot of focus on the commercial side of things. So not necessarily. I think, what am I trying to say? There's only so much that you could do in terms of making a place that's really considering the human side of it. And even though I was working a really fantastic place, and we'd keep pushing for making things better, there was a sort of limit to how far that would be taken on in a project. So it felt like I was just a bit frustrated. And then within art, it was possible to look at all these different topics and look at how that kind of human side of place. And then I've started to bring that over the last sort of 12 years into the way that I practice architecture, and evolved a new way of design that's actually starting with, okay, if I want to think about how we work as sort of our inner workings and design from that, what would that mean? So yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, but how open are people to your ideas? Or do you have to sort of prove that it's important?
It's definitely been easier since COVID. I think that really changed things. And before, I'd be sharing a lot of approaches and sort of more human architecture ways, and it's sort of like, oh, okay, that's nice, but we don't really need to change anything that we're doing. So, but then since COVID, actually, I think the value of it, just general awareness has shifted, and people go, actually, we do need to think about how these developments, big developments, thousands of people, is going to affect these people's lives, and for a long time as well, because you build somewhere and it's for future generations. It's not just for now. So I think there's a shift that's happening, but I still definitely find myself having to sort of take people through the thought process of going, well, actually, the spaces around us are not just about how they look, but actually how they make people feel and how that's going to affect their life in different ways.
But it's all about a cycle, isn't it? Because you have to first also make people understand the value of what art can do, and then you can implement really what you want to do. So it's almost, I can imagine that that it takes time to get to there.
Yeah, I think I've learned patience is a really important part of it. I think it's sort of, you expect things to change, and actually it does take time for new ideas or new concepts or ways of seeing to kind of percolate out. And luckily I have lots of friends, colleagues, collaborators who are all in a similar mindset. So together we're all doing things.
Amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm accepting that it will take time. That's okay.
But so if you design a space now, give me an example. So if you find, would we say an office space? So how would you go about then thinking of, what would be best in this environment?
So I'm actually working on an office space at the moment doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a good one. I think one of the first things is just thinking about how to make a generally uplifting space that will support people's mental health, and things like drawing from nature. So there's something called biophilic design, which is designing based on natural forms or experiences or patterns which have been shown to lift people's mood or lower stress. And actually the paintings that I do are always about nature, so I draw a lot from that. And shape a place with either like the materials or how you'll experience that place to make it feel like a bit more like you're in nature without necessarily, it doesn't have to be lots of green plants. I mean, the more the better, but actually you can do it through the space itself.
So do people expect it to be a lot about then greenery? You know, like if you say let's do it in a natural way, then they think you're going to plant trees or you're going to do something like that.
Yeah, I think it's, when I say biophilic design, everyone's like, "Oh, okay, that's to do with nature. Okay, that means more plants." But actually, that's sort of the first layer. But there's other things like the patterns that you find in nature, like say in a leaf or in flowers or in coral. There's these, they're called fractal patterns, and repeating patterns, and you can do that in a space through materials, or the way things like there's something called prospect and refuge theory, which is in the past when we were I suppose like cavemen and women and we had to survive. For our evolution, it was good to be in places where you could see far, so that's prospect, but you were also protected, so that's the refuge. And so actually we enjoy being in spaces where you're quite enclosed in some way, but you can have a really good view. And I think you can arrange a space to make people feel comfortable by thinking about those things as well. So there's sort of different aspects of experiences in nature that you can translate and bring that into the way that a building or a space is designed.
Amazing. But you know, I when I read about what you do, I thought you don't think about that, but it has a natural sort of way of making you feel without you even knowing, you know. So when you talk about this now, I think, yes, that's so true. Why don't we, even in our homes, you know, we have to take that also in consideration.
Absolutely. And I think in a way that homes, it's like it's your own sanctuary, and it's the place that should feel like, you know, it's making you feel good in different ways. And that it will be different for different people, but I feel like home is the foundation, and actually the more that can be done to help all different types of people have a good home in a sort of decent way, and as well, is really important. And even if it's just having like really good natural light, a sense of spaciousness and comfortable sort of environments.
But you know, I also just recently saw a little video of a restaurant here in Vienna. I've never been there, but it's sort of it was an old cinema, and that was the original cafe. So it's still everything really original, and the food is just normal traditional food. And I actually thought at the time, and this is even before I've now spoken to you, I thought to myself, I wonder if people, they don't go necessarily for the food, but they go for that old nostalgia, you know, from this was the old theater. And then now that we're talking, it's suddenly reminded of that again, and thinking, isn't that so also in sort of business, or in say restaurants, for example, that it's not, it is mainly, well, I would say it is also about the food, but that environment where you are having the food, that is also so important.
In a way, it sort of is the potential to really give to people. And it's like, the restaurant or a cafe, it can be, you know, it's not somewhere you're going to be all the time, but actually having the opportunity to just be somewhere that makes you feel good is great. And for me, I guess I feel like everywhere should have that that more human touch in a way, and just that consideration of actually let's make somewhere that fits with what we need in terms of us being kind of like biological creatures and our psychology and like all these things and how we come together. And
I think maybe it's the natural way of doing, and then suddenly we have an explanation for that. That you think, okay, I'm drawn to something, I don't really understand why, but now I have the answer to why.
Yeah, I think we all sort of know places that make us feel good, and then it's or somewhere that you enjoy being in, and I feel like it's something that is all in us, and then it's just being able to share that a bit more, and also when people know more about it, I feel like there'll be more demand for it in a way. Or,
exactly.
Yeah. You'll say, okay, well, actually, why is my home, not got enough natural light? That's really important for my mental health. Yeah.
Or, when you feel uncomfortable in a space, you realize, okay, but there's a reason why, you do that.
Yeah. And there's things like spaces that are not, safe as well. So actually places that you might feel uncomfortable being in at a certain time. And that can sometimes be the way that it's been shaped, or it can be changed to feel safer and feel more welcoming to people. So that sort of how a place feels can mean lots of different things. And I think if we're more aware of it, then you can start saying, okay, actually, why doesn't something get done about that?
Yeah. But do you think hospitals should also be more aware of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like for clearly for the patients, but also for the doctors who are there and working really, really hard, and to have an environment that can support them as well as the patients, I think is really important. And there's so much, I suppose, in hospitals where it's quite clinical and sterile for practical reasons. But actually, if there could be more healing environments that are perhaps a little bit more homely in some places, makes the whole thing feel a bit more humane and less awful. Sometimes when you have to spend so much time in a hospital, and it's just doesn't feel great on top of whatever crisis is going on.
Yeah, that's true. But tell me about your art. So you say you're inspired by nature.
Yes, so I think I've been looking at how nature makes us feel in different ways and trying to express that through abstract art partly, but also some more landscapes or figurative paintings, and going a bit between the two. But it's trying to capture the senses that you feel when you're in a natural space, the slight kind of beauty and the imperfection of nature as well, and that kind of organic aspect. And for me, it's a sort of ongoing exploration in a way of just understanding a bit more, like whether it's like the feeling of awe that you get in nature, or just capturing something like a dappled light, something like that. So it's evolving and ongoing, but there's just so much you can do as well. So,
but did your way of painting also change after you've studied design or architecture? Did you and now that you have this in mind, and that you work with these spaces, do you also then paint differently?
So when I started painting again. I hadn't painted probably since I was in school, to then maybe nearly coming up to 20 years later, that's when I started painting again, so a few years ago.
I see.
And I painted purely in abstract because I was almost reacting against the very precise drawings that you do in an architecture.
Oh, I see.
So it sort of it was like the opposite response. And actually now, having been doing that for a few years, I'm looking at how actually taking painting to create a design for a space and actually painting what that space would look like and how it would feel. So that's how I'm now thinking about merging the two. So it was almost a reaction against,
Really?
the sort of boundaries of drawing things really, really precisely. So that's been really interesting.
Yeah, but maybe that's also good, that you had that feeling and that you wanted to do that, because I do believe that this also inspires again your architecture.
Yes, and I think there's something about the emotional sort of power of a space that I want to try and convey actually through painting or drawing, that I think is hard to convey just in traditional architecture sort of materials. So that's something where I feel like it's going to be really exciting to start to bring that emotional side into how you design the space and through the paintings, because art communicates so much that, as we were saying, so much without words.
Yeah. So now that you're doing both and you are working with clients and you've had some experience of designing spaces, what is the dream now for you? What are the wishes? What would you like? How would you like to see your business going?
I think I'm at a point where I've done different projects to show a different approach, which has been great. And I've been starting to share that more widely. And I think what I'm really interested in is making change, I suppose, more widely. And I think we've got a concept of how you can design differently, and I call that compassionate places. That's my sort of design philosophy. And I'm now looking at just how to spread a different way through talks, or I've been doing a lot of talks, but I think working with others, collaborating with like-minded people, and I think just really helping highlight things like how important the arts are, and trying to see, because there's so many various crises in the world, we need different ways and different approaches. So I think that's, for me, you can do project by project, but actually it's perhaps more impactful to think about making big change.
Do you work with artists, so can artists contact you and show you their work that you might be able to use in these spaces?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. I think it's I'd like this sort of an idea I've had in the back of my mind to bring together sort of artists and be able to say, okay, for this project, this is a group of artists that we could showcase, particularly artists that perhaps are looking at topics around mental health or things that are about that more well-being side of things. I think it'd be really great to start to showcase that in buildings and spaces as well.
I've got a lot of lovely artists on my project that you can use their art, because there's wonderful people, and yeah, so
Yeah, it'd be wonderful. Yeah, it'd be great to connect.
Yeah. Now, I just thought of now when you're talking about this mental health, I recently spoke to an artist in Australia, Johanna Blair, and she did a series of paintings with the theme, when one door closes, another one opens. And now that you're talking about the mental health, I'm thinking that that's such an inspiring range of paintings, and she's hidden a key in every painting. And the key sort of symbolizes the door, opening a door, and a new beginning, or something good coming out of situation. So how wonderful, that if I'm just thinking something like that in a space could be very uplifting and, a talking point and a message.
Yeah. It's a good way to get people to think about mental health as well, without it being too kind of challenging for people, or just to or for people that are struggling to see someone else talk about it or through their art. I think it's just so powerful.
Well, I really hope I could connect you with people, or I hope that some of the artists who have been interviewed come in contact with you, because that would be for me so wonderful if I could bring people together or connect people. So, but congratulations with the wonderful work you're doing. It's I absolutely love your outlook, your program that you're doing, and I think more spaces should be designed like that. Also, not just for the well-being, but also for art to have its place in our society, to the importance of art in our society. I know a lot of people said during lockdown, yes, but artists are not as important as doctors because they don't save lives. But I just thought, arts not save lives like a doctor would save life, but music and art and all these things are part of our everyday life, and it is something that shape us and uplift us, and it is good for our mental health, not necessarily. Well, I think it's good for our physical health as well, but I think there is also an important part that it plays in our health.
Yeah, I think that sounds. I'm feeling very inspired now from conversation.
That makes me very happy to know. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for getting in touch, and I look forward to listening to more sessions from the artist's voice as well, and following all of that. So yeah.
I'm very happy to know that.